Hey y'all, and welcome back to the latest episode of Code Brew. I'm Joe King, and I'm not here with Lukewarm today. He is out being a world traveler, and we are for sure missing him. And what is he in the Philippines?
I think so.
I think he's in the Philippines. So yeah, so he's out doing big things, and we're super jealous actually. We kind of hate him right now, but So I am here with a guest that you should be familiar with if you've listened to our CVICU specialty episode. Lora Zappem is with us.
Hey.
Lora. So we're really excited to talk about travel nursing today. So we've got a whole episode queued up for you, and I'm ready to dive on in. So before I get too deep into it, I do want to read our disclaimer real quick. The views and opinions expressed on Code Brew are solely our own and do not represent the views of our employers, professional organizations, or any personal or professional affiliates. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. So before we start talking about travel nursing, though, I do have some really exciting things I want to say. Just that our followers are literally amazing. We are in 38 countries outside the United States. Can you imagine that?
What's the coolest country that you know of?
I mean, there's so many cool ones. I will say, like, from a geography standpoint, like, I did have to look up some on the map. Yeah. I'm really sorry, Miss Hollis from high school geography. I did have to look a few up on the map. They weren't immediately known to me. Yeah. But we have a big following in the UK, a big following in Australia, South Africa. So, I mean, obviously a lot of the English-speaking nations, we have some big following. You would be surprised how many followers we have in Russia, though.
Oh, interesting.
I was shocked by that. I mean, 38 countries, right? I mean, there's a lot of places.
Yeah.
We fit a lot of places, but it's really exciting to me. And then 40 U.S. states.
Well,
so
hopefully you probably already had some people from the Philippines, but if not, hopefully Lukewarm is listening from the Philippines this week.
He better be listening from the Philippines so we can get
another one.
No, that'd be great. And then his husband's there too, so he's, I think was planning on spreading some Code Brew tea over there. Ooh. So I'm excited about that. But yeah. So anyway, travel nursing. We both have travel nursing experience.
Yeah.
So you've been traveling as a CVIC nurse.
Yeah. Right at a year now. I mean, almost to the day a year. I don't know exactly what the day is, but I know it's like right here in this time
getting
frame.
Close.
Yeah.
And you've been in Ohio and Kentucky.
Yeah. Ohio and Cincinnati, and then Kentucky and Lexington. Yeah.
Okay. So I was in South Carolina, and I was in New Mexico, and as a travel nurse. I was actually a travel nurse in Kentucky before I took a permanent position too. So so I've hit up some states too. So travel nursing, I really enjoyed it. It has its challenges, of course. I was looking for some adventure. I mean, I think I was in it more for the ability to travel. I mean, the money at the time, and I was traveling in COVID. So the money was great, but, it was definitely, there was an adventure piece for me, I would say. What made you want to travel?
For me, I would say definitely I had an aspect of burnout for sure going on with my, with the unit that I was on. I was definitely feeling that. But then, I'm not sure if we discussed this on the CVI podcast or not, but I am now in CRNA school,
right?
Which I am soon to be unemployed because of that. Right. But knowing that I'm going to spend the next couple of years unemployed as a full-time student meant I really needed to essentially advocate for myself and make some extra money. So money was definitely a factor. I'd say burnout was a factor. Mm-hmm. Just kind of feeling like I was kind of stuck in my job and really needing to find somewhere new. Get us see some fresh faces, and then
I think I probably had a little bit of that burnout as well.
I think that definitely helped to trigger it. But then once of course, everybody I think talks about the money of it. And, obviously money is nice. I started traveling well after COVID, so the money wasn't quite as nice anymore. I mean, granted, it was more than I was making as a staff nurse.
I had a brand new baby at the time. And the thought, of course, finances were fine. But then I was like, oh, I could make so much more. And my wife at the time was able to not work and be home with him. And we traveled together in a camper. So I was like, I know, I totally get it. I mean, there's so many reasons. I mean, people do it for the money, of course. People do it for the ability to travel, the freedom to kind of move about, the freedom to kind of make your own terms. I mean, I know people who, especially during COVID, they would work for 3 months and then be off for 3 months and just do whatever they wanted to do because they were making so much money in that 3-month period, But I think burnout for a lot of people can be a factor. I mean, you can get tired of doing the same old thing in the same old places. So, no, I totally get it. But here's the thing about traveling, though, is like these assignments are hard. Like, travel nursing is not for the weak.
Definitely not.
It's not for the inexperienced.
I will certainly agree with that because I know there was a lot, especially during COVID. It seemed like a lot of the travel companies were willing to take people with I don't want to say no experience because that I almost find that hard to believe, but at the same time, I definitely heard rumors that was true. But
well, I mean, I think even now,
even little
like
experience, one year of experience is I mean that can still be tough. I think that even in your first year of being a nurse, you're still somewhat developing your backbone and developing your just sense of your intuition that something could be wrong with a patient and. I think that could be just really difficult.
I think you need more stability until you've got a few years under your belt. If you want me to know my personal opinion on it, but I mean, these facilities, like, there's a reason that they're willing to pay that kind of money for travelers, right? We understand that, and you and I both have spent some time in leadership as well, so we kind of have a much better understanding than maybe some of the people who are newer to healthcare, right? Yeah. So but we don't pay travelers because we want to. When from a healthcare leadership perspective, we want core staff. We want to push for core staff. We do not want to pay travelers. Yeah. You do it because you have to. So you have to remember when you go into these assignments, there's a sort of desperation. Like you have to be willing you have to have a pretty decent need for you to be willing to pay a traveler.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So you're going into these experiences where you're probably getting 1 day of orientation.
I think that especially that was the case, in COVID times, of course, granted, I wasn't traveling for that, but, I had a lot of friends who were traveling during that time period. And that was the experience that I'd heard a lot of them had. I remember stories of the nurses who went to New York when they were offering like $10,000 a week to work. I think you had to work 6 days a week. You'd get 1 day off if 1 day off anyway. But for $10,000, I mean, that's crazy money. But
I do a lot of money for that. Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of things for that.
Yeah. But I if I remember correctly, those friends of mine would tell you that like you didn't even get a training day at that particular location. It was quite literally hop in, here's your assignment and ask for what you need. I mean, it was total chaos. Yeah. And I think now, at least in my experience, I think at my first place I got 2 days, and then the facility that I'm at now I got 3 shifts. Granted, my third shift was kind of a fallout, but it was still officially an orientation shift. But I managed to go by the whole shift without a patient. I don't know how I got so lucky, but that'll never happen again. Waiting for a patient to get flown in that never got flown in the entire 12 hours. It's like, all right, well, this is an orientation shift, and I didn't have a patient, so yeah. Did I really orient at all?
Well, and a lot of times, I mean, I had at one place I had 1 shift. At one place I had 1.5. which was a little odd. And then in another place, I did have two full shifts. And
it's kind of seems like two is, at least nowadays, two is kind of the average.
Yeah.
Like aside from maybe like learn mod or like the online modules they make you do, official days on the unit with another staff or potentially another traveler, learning where things are, how to work their charting system.
Yeah, a
2
lot
days
of
is
that
kind of the typical, it seems.
Like, let me figure out my mind map of the department.
Yeah.
And then let me make sure I understand, like, I mean, from your standpoint, it'd be like understanding your doctors and like your post-op protocols. And like from the ED standpoint, it's the flow of the department a lot has to do with it, and like your typical patients and that kind of thing, because that does vary from place to place. But yeah, I mean, it's you got to be ready to roll.
Definitely.
And I just don't think
roll with punches
for sure. And I just don't. I've never met someone who only had 1 year of experience going into travel nursing that I thought appeared to be really successful. I think it was a very stressful, very unpleasant situation for them. And I feel like, you really have to know your stuff, for you to go into these situations. So, I think it's important, if you want to go into travel nursing when you start. I did a lot of research, right? Different ways to travel. Like some people stay at extended stay motels, some people travel with another person or a group of people, and they share the burden of a place to stay. Some people, almost commute. Like if you're, 50 miles from your home, they kind of commute and do, which is not really what you're supposed to do, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, so you're, the tax purposes, and I'm not a tax professional, so there's the caveat. I'm not a tax professional, but I do know that part of the reason why you get that untaxed stipend is that you're duplicating expenses, your living expenses.
I think we're actually going to go into more depth on that later, too.
For sure. So just think about, make sure you're doing your research on facilities, on nursing companies, on recruiters. There's a lot of Facebook groups. There's Reddit, subreddits. There's a lot of places for you to gather information. Just make sure that you do plenty of research going into it. And
chances are at your facility that you're at now, if you are a staff nurse, chances are you are working with other travel nurses. Ask them who they are working through, and have they had experiences at certain facilities, or with certain companies, or certain recruiters with companies and things of that nature. So it's definitely, it's a word of mouth game, just like it is working for any staff hospital, I think.
I think it is too. I mean, I was lucky. I got hooked up with a very good recruiter, and that made all the difference for me. But I think contracts
brings us right into our next topic.
Yeah. Here's the thing. If you're looking at a contract and it seems like it's too good to be true, it probably is. Right? I have never gone into a contract thinking that it was going to be some kind of a cakewalk. It's never, like if they're paying a lot of money, when you walk in the door, just, it's going to be.
Yeah, there's a chance to have some real work to be done.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're basically going into battle every time you walk in the door in some of these places. So, common red flags when you're looking at contracts, right? So, if it doesn't say that you're guaranteed hours, like that's probably something you need to look at.
Yeah.
Like that's probably, so like I never had a contract that wasn't guaranteed at least 36 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to pay me for 36 hours. Even if they said, oh, we don't need you today.
Yeah. If they were going to call you off, they've still got to pay you for it.
Yeah. So, like, there was, like, at least one place where they, like, called me off a couple of times. And I was like, but I have guaranteed hours. You know that, right? And I think the person who was calling me off didn't realize what that meant. And so they had to pay me regardless, and I think she regretted that later. But no, I mean, it is something that you need for your security, for your financial security. So
in my experience with that, when you get called off, with your guaranteed hours, you're still going to get your hourly pay, which is likely less than what it would be as a staff nurse. You're still going to get your hourly pay, which is probably like, let's say $20 or $30 an hour,
right,
or somewhere in there. But you're
sometimes
probably
less.
Yeah, sometimes less, depends on the contract that you take. But you're not going to get your stipend unless you actually go to work that day. At least in my experience, that's what it's been.
So that can sometimes vary from place to place. Like, if you don't work because you call out, you don't get your stipend. But if they call you off, you still do.
Yeah. Well, I never had that happen to me. My first job, I had the guaranteed hours, but they saw it as like, yeah, we're simply not going to be calling you off. If we're going to be paying you, you're going to be here.
Which is typically what you would do.
They called off their own staff, and I was like, can I please get a day off?
Yeah. No, I mean, and you're not going to get one because they got to pay you regardless.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no, I totally understand because no, I mean, there's been several places where they were calling off their staff for low census or whatever, because in the ER that does happen from time to time. It's not super prevalent in the ER, but because there's so much ebb and flow in a census. But it does happen. But they would bring in their travelers because they had to pay them regard. So that was so other than guaranteed hours.
Sorry, I had a quick comment on that.
No,
eventually, that actually starts to create a little bit of animosity among your staff nurses, because then your staff nurses are utilizing all their PTO hours because they're consistently getting called off. So I shouldn't say consistently getting called off so often, but in some cases, they get called off so often that they're like, well, why are we paying the traveler so much to be here, yet I can't get my pay, which is a valid argument, honestly.
No, it is a valid. Yeah.
It's a valid argument, and it's definitely, it starts to mess with the staff morale. So it's just one of the pros and cons of the traveler game.
And I will say, like, I have encountered, and I won't say it was a lot. I mean, I can think of like basically one person at each place that I worked as a traveler, but there was like one person at each place at least that was like, yeah, I don't like you travelers, and just. She was like,
no way.
Like, she was like, I mean, I remember there was one in particular, and she was like, I don't like travelers. And, like, she even said that. And it was like, but we're, we just would be like,
help you.
Blatant animosity. And you're like, okay, well, I'm still a human, and you're going to at least respect me.
At minimum, at baseline.
Yeah, so it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. But at the same time, like, I understand, but I also feel like there's never a reason to be ugly. But I mean, just know going out there that there's going to be times where somebody's going to be like, yeah, you're a travel nurse, I don't like you.
Yeah.
No, for sure. So another thing to consider when you're looking at, like, a lot of times in your contract, it's going to say that you may be required to float. Which, if you're not super experienced already going into it, you go into this place, you get your 1 or 2 days of orientation, and at least you have enough to maybe be successful in this one unit, and then suddenly you have to float too, and things start getting really complicated. So just know about that going in. Ask about your float requirements. Never, never, never go into a contract without talking about your float requirements, right? As an ED nurse, I never had to float except one time. I was asked to go to another ED in the town.
Interesting.
In the city. And boy, was it a negative experience. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, it does happen. But you should know what your contract says about that and be willing to take on those requirements, because they can do that to you if you sign that contract. So
definitely.
Yeah, some other things that I saw that I've just seen haven't happened to me, but I've seen happen to other people. Very vague job descriptions, and or like not having a unit assignment, or at least not until like the last minute. So there's always a possibility. I mean, I don't want you to think that people are always out to get you. necessarily.
But you have to protect yourself and
You
your
do have to
license at
protect
the end of the
yourself.
day.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. So you have to be going into it with the knowledge that you need to be considering what all the fine print says. So, so what about recruiters? I have to say, I had an excellent recruiter. My recruiter, and we're still friends. I met her through, her name is Laura.
Okay.
That's her real name. That's her real name. Yeah. No, she was always super helpful, always had my back. You know, I felt very confident going into a contract knowing that she had made sure all the I's were dotted, the T's were crossed, and everything. So, like, anytime something came up that there was a problem, it was never because of my recruiter, and I knew that. So, I mean, there was one time where my start time got delayed because of some issues with, like a separate entity that handled contracts for a hospital and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And I knew that Laura was taking care of me. So, I mean, just, you really would need to do your research on recruiters and have someone that you have a good relationship with. Because I'll be honest with you, there are recruiters out there who aren't doing it for the right reasons, right? Yeah. Or, I mean, everybody's got to feed their families, but, you know, I've heard people having their recruiters ghost them, like they're mid-contract, they can't get a hold of anybody. Recruiters have lied to them. There's, you know, some shady agency business practices and stuff that their recruiter was a part of. You know, giving you lowball offers and stuff. And, you know, the supply and demand is real, right? So we have to understand the business of it as well. But like I said, I mean, having a good recruiter can completely make or break your experience.
Yeah. I've had two recruiters myself. It's the same agency, but I just had one recruiter leave the agency. Yeah. So I've had two total. My first one, I loved her, and she was a recommendation from another traveler that was on my unit. I really liked her a lot, and then she left, and I just kind of got automatically assigned to a new one. And at first, I wasn't so sure about the new one, and she's my current one. She's grown on me a little bit, though. She's never, you know, done anything to make me suspicious of her. She's, you know, in this, I have a lull period between basically the whole month of May where, you know, I will be essentially unemployed, but in between, you know, in between starting school. So I don't really have anything going on. And she's really tried hard to try to find little like 2 or 4 week contracts for me to like just to kind of fill my time in May. But, you know, nothing really seems worthwhile for me right now, nothing that really makes sense.
I think those are pretty
for me
rare
to
sometimes.
Yeah, and usually it's a lot of like strike contracts and
that's
which is a whole other topic for a whole other day.
Yeah, strike contracts. They exist.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of there's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, they offer a lot of money, like 9 or 10K, but for a week. But yeah, there's a lot of morality issues you have to consider with that, and you know, is it really worth the money? And yeah, anyway,
those nurses are striking for a reason.
Yeah, they are. So aside from that, you know, I will say though, I feel like my agency hasn't always treated me the best. I have considered. I think that I've pulled the threatening card to like, okay, well, if you keep doing this, I'll find another agency, and they all of a sudden pull their act together. So definitely don't be afraid to do that, because, you know, you're only assigned to a contract for 13 weeks, and you could most likely find that exact same contract for the same, if not better pay with another company. So always keep that in mind. I have lots of traveler friends who have 2 recruiters, you know, one with different companies, and they basically kind of make them fight for their attention a little bit.
I mean, in these days where you know, a lot of people have left travel nursing because the rates have dropped. I mean, you can kind of do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the agencies themselves are a little bit more desperate. So yeah, I've had a little bit of some
well, they were making COVID money too, and now they're not.
Yeah, and now they're not. Yeah, everybody's hurting. So.
Right.
Yeah, so just keep in mind, always to stick up for yourself and read your contracts. I remember the first contract I got, I was reading it from top to bottom, backwards to front. I read it so many times, like, is this what I really want to do? And
Well,
like,
you got
does
what you
this
gotta
money,
do.
yeah, is this money real?
Yeah.
Is this for real money?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
is this Monopoly money?
and you can definitely make some great money, just as long as you really have measured expectations
Yes.
about what it's going to be like.
Yeah,
So, I
absolutely.
mean, now, and some places need travelers because there's just a staffing shortage, period. It may not have anything to do with the facility. I mean,
Yeah.
there is a healthcare staffing shortage, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere. I don't know of a lot of places that aren't dealing with a staffing shortage, but there's also, sometimes there are reasons for more profound staffing shortages as well,
Yes.
so we know that. But I will say, as far as agencies goes, when it comes to like negative stories, I see that has more to do with agencies a lot of times than recruiters.
Yeah.
From my
The
experience that I've
recruiter
seen.
really wants you. They want your business, if you want to consider it as that.
Well, they have a personal relationship with you.
Yeah.
And your agency,
They're the face of the company to you.
they are. In your agency, you are a money-making tool for them, you might say. And I don't feel like that. Now, I had an agency, like I said, I was really lucky. My agency was great. I always felt very supported, and I told multiple people, I was like, hey, it wasn't a super well-known agency, and they had better benefits than other places. Like, I'd really done my research when I was like, looking into travel nursing, and so that was one of the reasons why I went with this company, and I ended up with this recruiter as well. But I mean, I hear things like these horror stories about like bait and switch pay tactics where you sign on at one rate and then, you're like literally the day before your contract starts and they're like, oh, just kidding, they lowered your rate.
Yeah.
And you're already there.
Yeah.
And you're kind of locked in. I've heard of people like pulling contracts last minute, a few days before they're supposed to start. Withholding pay, delaying pay, and just know, like, you can report these things. I mean, there are still some pending class action lawsuits against some agencies. So just, like I said, when it comes to agencies, like, make sure you're definitely doing your research, because you don't want to end up signing up for an agency,
get stuck.
And you're stuck. I mean, because you are stuck. Those 13 weeks, you're stuck. So, but yeah, I would say word of mouth is really good when it comes to, like, somebody that that's had a positive experience. But like I said, there's a lot of forums online to help you as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So what about housing? And like kind of living that nomad life?
Yeah.
Like, what's been your experience with housing?
So when I did, so you kind of touched on it earlier, but with the stipends, if you want to do everything in a legal manner,
Which we do want to do.
We want to do that correctly.
You don't want to have to pay the IRS.
Yeah,
later.
I do not want to get audited and owe
Heck
a bunch of
no.
money. So with that, you need to have your home, like, so, the home that you live in, which is, where you truly live.
Your tax home.
Your tax home. That's what we would refer to it as,
Right.
your tax home. And then for your stipend is meant to cover a living expense in the city that you would be working in. So when I worked in Cincinnati, I actually I originally started off with another nurse that I was a friend with, and we actually basically it was kind of like an apartment together.
I thought I remembered you doing it with somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, we basically did an apartment together, and split that cost. And that, that made it cheaper, and it still was cheaper, or, whatever our stipend money was. We still got to pocket a good bit of our stipend money, but we also could show proof that we were paying our tax home, plus we were paying for this additional home outside of our tax home, and that's really what you have to do. And then you also want to certainly keep records of that as well too.
Right, and the IRS does not care that you're splitting it with someone else.
Yeah, they just want to know that you're spending that money in the way that
it's intended.
Yeah.
So if you find ways to cut down on your expenses, that's okay. As long as you still have a tax home.
Yeah.
You know, you have a mortgage or a rent in the place where you would call your home.
Right.
So,
With for my current so after my I was at my Cincinnati travel contract for about 9 months.
Yeah. You were there for a long time.
I was there for a while.
Yeah, you were really happy there.
I really liked that.
Yeah.
They loved me and I loved them.
Yeah.
It was hard to leave.
Yeah.
But
it can be like that.
Yeah.
I had one like that too.
Yeah. For the first 3 months I stayed with, the friend and I, we had an apartment together. But then she actually needed to go back home. She was pregnant and needed to secure some better insurance and different types of things with that. That's another thing we could potentially talk about is insurance and
they offer it.
Insurance is there, but what's the other word I'm looking for? Like for her it was mother leave, maternity leave.
Oh yeah, like so that's not included.
Yeah, the other advantages of
there are other benefits.
The benefits
that you're so there are some benefits that aren't provided when you're a traveler.
Yeah. Now, and that was one of them. With her knowing she was pregnant, she needed to get a staff job so 100%. That she could have.
So you have FMLA.
FMLA.
You have to be somewhere like a year.
Yeah. So anyway, so she ended up going back to staff job because she found out that she was pregnant and she really needed to do that. But so for me, that left me alone in Cincinnati. So I had to find another place. And I actually had found a place on Furnished Finder, not sponsored, but not to.
No, but it's a good resource.
Yeah, it was a really, really good resource. But Furnished Finder, essentially, it is apartments or houses that come furnished, obviously. That's why it's called Furnished Finder. And it's specifically meant for healthcare workers. So the rates on
typically we're better renters.
Yeah, typically we take care of the houses that we are going to go into, or the spaces, I should say, that we're going to go into. Yeah. We're there to get paid, so you can trust that we're going to pay our rent. Mm-hmm. So usually it's a good option for a lot of people, but I actually had managed to find a place that was a shared home. So it was myself and 2 other healthcare workers that were all living in this one home, and none of us knew each other, of course. But I went and I I went and I toured the house because I'd never done anything like this before. Almost kind of like hostel living, if you've ever done that.
Yeah, that sounds fun though.
Yeah. So I went and I toured the house and got a look at everything. And basically you had your own bedroom. Depending on, of course, the situation, you may or may not have your own bathroom. And then additionally, you have the kitchen and the living room. And this particular space also had a little small gym room.
Nice.
That was like a shared space for everyone in the house. Yeah. So basically you have your own little private space and then everywhere else is a shared space. And then of course you're staying there with 2 other medical professionals. Mm-hmm. In my case, it was another nurse who worked at another local hospital, and it was an X-ray tech who actually worked at the hospital that I was at. And I'd be working some nights, and all of a sudden, here come my roommate, and I'd be like, "Hey, roomie." It'd be really weird, but
I know that's cool though. It gives you option to meet someone, in a city where you don't know as many people. Yeah.
I mean, granted, I kind of thought maybe I'll make a friend out of this because me being the social butterfly that I am, those people were not interested in becoming friends with me.
Not you.
Well, the X-ray tech, she was a little older, and then the other nurse, that particular room, because I was there for 6 months, the nurse was actually filtered out. There's actually one of the nurses that was there works with you in the neuro ICU. Not with you, but at your facility.
One of my people.
Yeah, she works in the neuro ICU. She knows.
Talk about that offline.
Yeah. Yeah, but they.
Did you ask her why she doesn't want to be your friend?
Well, I wouldn't say they didn't want to be my friend, but they just I never asked, "Hey, do you want to ever hang out?" But it never came up. So it was basically we were just busy. Kind of all I wouldn't say tiptoed around each other, but we all we just did our thing and nobody really talked to anybody.
When you're there, you're working.
Yeah.
You have family obligations back home.
Yeah.
You have us here that we are very demanding friends.
Very demanding.
Very demanding.
Yeah. And for me, anytime I wasn't working, I always came back home. Yeah. And the X-ray tech, she was the only one that was truly not somewhat local. So myself and then the other room, even though, it was a couple of different nurses that would go in and out. all lived like within a couple of hours or so away.
Mm-hmm.
So we would all go back and forth when we weren't, scheduled to work. But the x-ray tech, she lived like states away.
Okay.
So she was the only one who stayed permanently. Like she actually truly lived there, and everyone else just kind of came in and out. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a really interesting experience. But then now for my current contract in Lexington, I actually just have a friend who lives there, and I do pay her rent, and I keep a little track of that. She, we don't have a contract or anything, but I told her, hey, you let me sleep here in your extra room, I'll send you some money every month.
Well, the caveat for that is this: like, if you're gonna do that, make sure your friend knows. And this is, I'm sure you're doing it correctly, but they do have to report that as income. Like, you're gonna be reporting that as what you're paying for housing on your taxes. So if they are like, if you're paying them cash or quote unquote under the table, the IRS is gonna find out because you're having to report it as, because that's my caveat is like, as long as everything's on the up and up, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
If it feels like maybe things are maybe a little gray area, then you may not be fine. They may come knock on your door.
Yeah. Well, what about your experience in the camper RV life?
Well, I'm a big supporter of it. I would say it was a good experience for the most part. We were able to find some great campgrounds. Campground people are very friendly. We made a lot of friends, especially when we were in New Mexico. We made several friends in the campground there that we're still friends with. In fact, one of them is pregnant, and I'm so happy for her, and another one recently retired as a teacher, and she's been kind of doing some nomad life stuff, even more than she was previously. So she's like, great people and people that I want to be friends with, and I will continue to follow, right?
Yeah.
And
make some good friendships, for sure.
You really do. And the campground life.
Did you ever hang out with them outside of the campground? Did they want to be friends with you?
We hung out at the campground.
Oh.
Yeah. We actually met at the dog park in the campground.
Oh,
we were
cool.
dog park friends. We made, we literally bonded over our dog.
Oh, those are the best kind of friends.
And it was great. It really was. Like, we would meet each other at the dog park every day, and the dogs would play, and they were BFF, and we were just, we had a great time. We started, taking drinks out there. It really was great. It was, it was super positive. Highly recommend it, right? I mean, honestly, if you're considering travel nursing, I definitely recommend doing the camper life, right? Mm-hmm. But having a camper, it does have there's a learning curve, right? And there are some conditions, you do not want to be somewhere where it is profoundly cold, spending long amounts of time, below freezing.
Yeah.
Because...
Or where there's tornadoes.
Well, I mean, I don't want any kind of house there. And yet that's where I grew up. No, I just, things freeze in the camper. People don't really remember, recognize those kind of things. You have to think about those kind of things. I think, campgrounds have a lot of amenities too. I mean, my son got to swim, a lot. We had some cool places, and we made some really good friends in South Carolina too that I'm still friends with on Facebook too, and I just realized I hadn't even mentioned them. So we made great friends everywhere, right? Yeah. And they have little playgrounds there on the property, so my son got to play, and then generally campgrounds, as long as you're doing your research, campgrounds are pretty budget friendly, and then also they're pretty safe for the most part, and you can kind of feel confident walking the dogs or whatever, not feeling like you're gonna.
Yeah, there's a campground not very far, maybe 10 minutes from here, that a lot of Louisville travelers.
Yeah, because there's not a lot in the city of Louisville, so you kind of have to be around. Because we stayed.
There's a KOA near here, which I think those are kind of pricier, but there's a literal campground, on a billy goat farm.
Heck yeah, I would definitely go to a billy goat farm.
Yeah.
So just with anything, I mean, a lot of people do like the Airbnb thing. I think Airbnb is kind of like falling out of favor,
Yeah.
but
I think it's become more Furnish Finder seems to be
yeah,
more
Furnish
realistic.
Finders is a lot. Some people do, like I said, the extended stay motels. But just like anything, like no matter where you're looking, please do your homework, right?
Yeah. Make sure you're in a safe area.
Yeah, like talk to, if you can, like reach out to somebody in the facility where you're going and like ask, like, hey, I looked at this location. Is that a safe location? If I'm, is it okay for a place for a single female? You can ask those questions, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, because there are places that it might be okay for a guy, but maybe you wouldn't want to send a single female. Um, is there easy access to things that you need? Food, groceries. If you're in the middle of nowhere on a goat farm, there may not be a Taco Bell that's open 24 hours close by.
Well, there is one.
So, I mean, and let's be honest, I am someone who needs a Taco Bell.
I Taco Bell for lunch.
I love Taco Bell.
Don't tell my husband.
If you need to be pet friendly, so like I traveled with a dog and a cat and a baby, to be honest with.
Which is another animal itself.
Yeah, they have to be baby friendly. No, I'm just kidding. No, but some places are not pet friendly, so you just need to think about that. And that's one of the reasons why we went the camper direction, is because like nobody was going to tell me I couldn't bring him in my camper.
Yeah.
But that brings about its own challenges, right? So, just call and ask questions. Don't always trust pictures, because let me tell you,
I was asked to tour.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good.
I'll make a 2-hour drive for a tour if I need to, because I want to know where I'm living. I want to trust that it looks reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want any surprises. And always consider, especially if you're by yourself, you're not married, consider traveling with a buddy. I mean, your first contract, you traveled with a buddy, and I think it was a good experience.
It was a great experience.
So I think we probably need to talk about the money part too. Now, we are not tax professionals. Let me repeat. Show me the money, right? I mean, make sure you pay the IRS too, though. I mean,
oh yeah,
they're gonna come for you.
They're scary.
No, so travel pay, right? So there's basically two components. You have your hourly rate, and then you have your stipend.
And your hourly is gonna be almost like when you first see it, it's almost insulting. Like, you're gonna pay me how much an hour?
Right.
Huh?
The stipend is where you make your money. Now, the stipend has to be based on like the government rate, the GSA. And there's like this whole table. It goes like city by city. So like,
yeah, my first recruiter actually really did a good job of breaking that down for me. Granted, that was a year ago. I don't remember it now, but I just trust that they do a good job at it. Yeah, I don't question it, but I probably should.
You can do your own research about the GSA and looking at it in different places. I mean, you can like Google those things. Make sure you're looking at the most up-to-date numbers, because cost of livings do change from place to place. So your stipend may be negotiable, but a lot of times, if they've done it correctly in the first place, it's probably not very negotiable.
Yeah. I've had one instance where I did get it negotiated up, and that was because my friend who I traveled with, we were doing the exact same assignment. She actually went with a different company, was making significantly more on her weekly pay than I was. And I was able to take her contract, get a copy of her contract, send it to my people, and be like, hey, we're doing the same contract. Why does this look so different? And they were able to boost me up a little bit. It still did not match hers.
Right.
But, I mean, let's be honest, at the same time, I was happy to make what I was making. Any boost was going to make me happy. I was locked into the contract regardless.
Right.
Any boost was going to make me happy, but they were able to bring it up. It was like maybe a couple $100, but that's still a couple $100.
No, I mean, that is, so, I mean, if they, like I said, if they've done it correctly to begin with, and they have based it off the GSA.
They were not happy to increase it, let me say that. They were like, I don't know how they're paying this person so much money, because this is what it should be, but...
Right, so this goes back to agencies. Just remember, so there's a billed rate, right? The hospital is going to pay a bill rate, okay? And out of that bill rate comes your hourly pay, your stipend, and what the agency makes. Okay? So the bill rate doesn't change. If you negotiate, you're taking money out of your agency's pocket.
Exactly.
Is how they view it. So just know that going in.
Mm-hmm.
So like how I keep saying, do your research, right? But so like I said, the hourly rate, which is going to be taxed, your hourly rate is going to be taxed. It is going to be taxed just like it would at any other job, right?
I want to say, I mean, can we talk specifics? Is it okay if we talk numbers?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to say that I know my hourly rate right now is $26 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that my hourly rate for my first...
less than new grad rate.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to say my hourly rate for my first contract and all the way through the full like 9 months I was there was $20. So again, when I said like I first got my contract and I was like, you're only going to pay me $20 an hour, this is insulting. I'm currently making, it was probably somewhere 35 or so as a base pay for a staff nurse. So, you know, like that's just, it's insulting at first. And it's like wait a minute, I thought I was supposed to be making money here.
But you're paying less taxes.
You do pay less taxes on that. Yeah. So once you figure out how the system works, you realize that it definitely is more in your favor to make a little bit less on that hourly rate and more on your stipends.
Right. So that's where you want to, if you can make more on your stipend and take a little bit of a cut on your hourly rate, that's what you want to try to do, because the tax-free money is way better. But why is it tax-free, right? Like we said, it's because the government expects you to duplicate expenses. They want you, they're expecting you to be paying for your tax home, whether that be a place that you rent or a place that you own, you have a mortgage, or you're paying property taxes if you don't even have a mortgage anymore. You're very lucky that you're not having to pay a mortgage. But anyways.
Mortgage is cheaper than rent these days.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. But you're renting a place, and then also you're paying for a place wherever it is you're traveling. To be eligible for a tax-free stipend, you have to be traveling at least 50 miles from your tax home to work. They are not going to be happy if you are commuting back and forth. Let's be honest. They are expecting you to stay away from home. So if that is what you choose to do, just know that you're living in the gray area and not necessarily doing what the government is expecting. So there is a possibility that if you end up commuting back and forth 50 miles, which is a long way. Yeah. I'm just going to say it's a long way.
We're talking every single shift.
Every single shift. Yeah.
Every single shift.
If you're going back and forth like that, just know that they are probably going to expect some money.
Yeah. If you get audited, you will likely be paying a lot of money in back taxes.
Yeah. You have to maintain that tax home. Like if you have a rent that you're paying and then you decide to give up that home, that tax home, and you're not paying rent there anymore because you're paying, like, just know they're going to come for you if you get audited. And we're talking thousands, people. I mean, I've heard horror stories of people having to pay back $150,000, I mean, during COVID times because they weren't doing things the right way. We're not tax professionals. Don't trust anyone except for an accountant.
Yeah. As
your tax professional, okay? So if you're thinking about travel nursing, you need to talk to the person that you trust with your taxes and say, like, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I mean, I'm sure you can even take them your contract and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. What do you think about this? What should we be doing? They're going to help you stay within the confines of the law, okay? So definitely talk to a tax professional.
Yeah, seek someone who's truly a professional in it, not pretends to be.
Yeah, I mean, and you may know a lot about taxes, so if you feel confident, just make sure you're doing your research, okay? And don't trust your recruiters to give you tax advice because they're not tax professionals either. A lot of them are nurses, you know. And listen, we don't learn about business in nursing school. And I mean, there are very real examples of people who have learned the hard way, and you don't want to learn that way, right? So some pro tips for money for me: always get your pay breakdowns in writing, so that you can say like, hey, this is not what I actually got. Always keep your documentation. Anytime you pay for a hotel, for a campground, for rent. I mean, if you're paying a mortgage, you definitely have documentation, but yeah, all those things, you need to make sure you have them. If you get audited, God forbid, you have that documentation in hand. Gas money. You don't get to write off gas money for going back to work every day. But like whenever I drove from South Carolina to New Mexico, which I don't know if y'all looking at a map, but that's kind of far. I got to keep those receipts.
Yeah.
From traveling from one assignment to another.
That one time, not back and forth every week.
Yes, that one time I was able to, and then whenever I, drove back from New Mexico and came to Kentucky, I was able to take like those receipts for that long way.
Yeah. If you make a big move like that, a lot of times they will, the company, the agency will reimburse you a little bit of your travel fees.
They do sometimes.
Like if you need to rent a U-Haul, if you need to transport your car somehow, they will help you with those kinds of fees. If
some agencies will, for sure.
If it means moving you, basically across the country, they will assist with that. So definitely ask. It never hurts to ask for those kind of things. And they will give it to you tax free, and essentially it usually just shows up on your first paycheck. At least in my
it's nice. There's a lot of resources.
They even, for both of my contracts, they've even reimbursed me for scrubs both times. My first contract, I had to wear navy blue scrubs, which I've never worn navy blue in any of my jobs. And then my contract now, I'm back to the royal blue. But of course, because my weight has shifted so much in the last umpteen years, I needed new scrubs. So they gave me another stipend for new scrubs again.
Well, that's really nice. No, it's really nice. I mean, it's really helpful. So there are some travel nurse tax experts out there. There's a few. The primary one that I've seen that people talk about a lot is travel tax. So if you want to do some research online, I highly recommend taking a look at that. Okay, just keep yourself educated. Because let me tell you, the IRS does not care if you, quote unquote, did not know. Okay? Like, ignorance is not a defense, unfortunately. So, and I don't want to hear about anybody, having a bad experience for sure. So, so clinical realities on the road. We've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but like, just think about this. At some point, if you are travel nursing for any amount of time, you will walk into chaos. Okay? You will walk into a situation where you completely understand why they have a staffing shortage.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. You can see it on some places. You can understand why and what the problem at heart is.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I had pretty good experiences, I will have to say, but there was one place in particular that I was like, okay, I would never take a core contract. I mean, a core staff role here. Like, never, never.
That first job that I loved, they offered me a core job, and I was like, if I lived here in a second, sign the dotted line away, I would do it in a heartbeat. But...
Well, I mean, when I was in South Carolina, gosh, I loved that place. I really did. I could have moved there, but I knew for my family it wasn't the right thing. But it was definitely, I loved it there. So you're gonna be the new person, okay? And you could be the new person every 13 weeks. Yeah. So for me, I really hated having to prove myself every time I walked in the door. I mean, and you do. I mean, you can extend your contract sometimes, and you stay somewhere, and it's so nice to be able to stay somewhere for a little while. But because whenever you walk into a place and it's brand new, they don't know you, and they're gonna basically not trust you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like this is the case for any other traveler I've encountered, for my own traveling experience. When you're in a room, or I shouldn't say when you're in a room, when you're kind of, maybe you're sitting nearby and you're charting, and you can tell that something's happening in a nearby room, and you offer to help. There's definitely been times where, like, I'll go in and say, like, hey, what can I do? And I'm the new person, they don't know what I'm capable of, or if they can trust me, and they're like, oh, it's okay. Like, you can tell they probably definitely clearly need the help, but like they also don't know me, and they can be like, oh, it's okay. Like, we're all right here. But then give it a couple weeks, they start to know you, they start to understand what you are good at.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, oh yeah, come on in.
Oh, yeah.
Here's your role for the day.
Yeah, and you definitely can tell whenever that shift occurs. Like, I remember one place, I knew when that shift occurred because they were like, "Oh, can you precept this for a new person?"
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay,
Oh,
yeah,
so you trust me.
okay, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, no, I understand.
Oh, so you want me to train people, huh?
Well, and I mean, if you're good, that does happen. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there are some places they're short on staff, and they want somebody experienced to train their new staff. And listen, like, of course, I love to teach.
Yeah.
You love to teach.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, I was like, oh, of course, give me that kid. Let's do it. No, but yeah, I mean, having to prove yourself, it does suck. It was something that bothered me, but I was like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna rise to the challenge again. So
you get kind of used to it after you kind of understand that that's just the beast of it. Yeah.
But you have probably also looked at somebody that way before, so just know that, you know, like, I mean, we all do that if you don't know somebody. So, and then at the same time, that's kind of my next point. Like, trust no one. But I mean, you're going to make connections, right? I mean, we do that. I mean, I guess you may not. Some people are really introverted and they don't really make connections, but I am someone who makes connections, and I know you are.
At the start of my shift, I mean, even at the assignment that I'm at now, if they have so many people, whether it be on staff or on travel, or like whether it's a float nurse, I mean, I'm coming to the end of my contract, and even just my most recent shift, I looked around and I was like, I know one nurse that's around me. I don't know any of these. These are all fresh faces. So like, whoever's sitting next to me for the night, like, hey, hey, my name is Laura. You know, what's your name? Hey, these are the rooms that I have. Let me know if you need help tonight. This is where you're probably going to find me.
Yeah.
Like, I like to introduce myself, like, what's your name? So that we don't have this awkward, what's your name again? When I actually do need your help. So that's me, but I'm also super outgoing, and I'm never afraid to like introduce myself to somebody.
Like, hey, listen, I'm a
people
badass. My name's Joe. And I totally get it. I mean, I never meet a stranger. But like, I think for me, like, one of the things I try to recognize is like, not everybody are like that. So maybe I should introduce myself. Because they maybe be like, I don't know what to do with my hands. You know what I mean? So, but yeah. So also, like, being a traveler doesn't mean that you're immune from drama.
Yeah.
Right? And it also doesn't mean like you may not get stuck with ratios that you don't really agree with. Number one, try to stay out of the drama, man. Like, come on, you know. I mean, I know some people feed off of that. Like, I get it. I do like listening to other people's problems, but I don't want to be a part of them. So
I'm a one ear open kind of gal. Like, what's going on here? I'm gonna stay right here. But
I don't want to be a part of it for sure. But and then when it comes to ratios, like, remember, like, you do have a license to protect, and at the end of the day, it is your responsibility and yours alone to protect that license. If you can do that in a way that is professional, you know, I highly encourage you to always be professional. But, you know, if you're getting pushback and you feel like something is really an unsafe situation, don't be afraid to speak up.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, I feel like I've had situations where I felt like, things were a little wild, but I've never been in a situation where I feel like they were unsafe. So I've been pretty lucky. So, you had like some really rewarding moments that you want to talk about, or?
I would say rewarding moments. Definitely that first assignment that I had. The one I was there for 9 months in Cincinnati, and you know, they let me train. So I remember the first day. It was kind of towards the end of my contract, end of my time there, I should say, and all of a sudden there's this new guy that shows up, and he looks at me and goes, "You're Laura, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm with you tonight." And I'm like, "Are you sure? I think there's somebody else named Laura. Like, let's make sure that you're with the right Laura." Not that I'm not capable, or not that, you know, but it just had been the case at this facility that, like, that the travelers did not train the new people.
So suddenly they forget you're a traveler.
Well, yeah, I thought I was like, so I went to the charge and I said, totally don't mind. I would be glad to have I think he was a new grad. Right. I said, I would be glad to take him on, but I just want to make sure that this is what you guys want. And they were like, yeah, honestly, you're the most experienced nurse tonight. I was like, oh, okay.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So I'd say like when they start to trust you, of course that like builds that. And then for that particular unit, I remember we had this one night where we actually had 2 rooms that were right next to each other. A lady that had a balloon pump. And I really wasn't too super involved with her case because her nurse was like handling it like a champ. But circle in the drain, they could really tell that that patient was not doing well. And then the room that was
That's a medical term, circle in
the drain. And then there was another patient that was literally right next door who wasn't doing terrible, but like things weren't looking beautiful in that room, but like she looked better than the other patient did, but like not fabulous by any means.
Right.
And the nurse that was in that room, who's now a good friend of mine, he came and he found me and he's like, Amanda, everyone else is in the other room. I just don't have a good feeling about this room though. Like, can you come and look? And I looked at her and it was night shift. And I said, she doesn't look good. The lights are off still. I said, she doesn't really look that great to me either. Numbers don't look beautiful. So let's like flip the lights on and let's get a little bit better of an assessment. I turned the lights on. Her color is pale as hell. Like pale as a ghost.
Battleship gray.
Yeah, I look at her and I'm like, ooh. She looks terrible.
This isn't good.
Yeah. So it ends up
my assessment is poor.
It ends up being that we basically are like dual coding rooms right next to each other. And we have a provider on that night. It's as a nurse practitioner.
Basically think dueling banjos when somebody's dying.
Yeah. But there's 2 and they're both dying.
Yeah.
And the nurse practitioner is also training someone that night. Or she wasn't training someone. It was like a new nurse practitioner to the facility. Yeah. But someone who like knows what they're doing.
Right.
She just was new to us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I know you guys are clearly busy in here, but next door is also not doing well. I said, I can take care of this situation if you would like, as long as you don't care what I do. I can fix it as long as you give me control, basically. And they were like, do what you need to do. We're like quite literally back to code here.
Spread your wings.
So we ended up, this lady, I mean, she is not doing well. I mean, I think that I am like pushing drugs. I don't remember exactly what we did, but we pushed some things on her, got her doing a little bit well, or a little bit better. And then before shift ended, we put that patient on ECMO. The other one was a full-on code. It was a really crazy show, like crazy shift.
I feel like this is just attention-seeking behavior.
It really was. But
everybody's giving that one attention. I want to do it too.
But it was the fact that nurse, he looked at me and he was like, Lora can help. Laura knows, like, she's the one who is going to
She can save me.
She can help save me. And then even when they were cannulating for ECMO, again, there was still a bunch of people busy in this other room. And at this particular facility, I'm not ECMO trained. But I mean, when you're ECMO trained, right? But at this particular facility, I wasn't checked off. Let's call it that.
Right.
They didn't have me checked off on it. So I couldn't do any of the ECMO things, but I could at least do...
That's crazy to me, because I feel like you're an ECMO expert.
But I could do, like,
they said you couldn't, are they sure? Do they know who you are?
Well, I think in their mind, they were only going to keep me for 13 weeks. They wouldn't let me they wouldn't let me perform EKGs on anyone either, which was my favorite thing in the world. I wasn't allowed to do an EKG because they didn't check me off on it. I was like, I won't complain. I hate doing an EKG.
Oh my god!
But anyway,
it's a little
Okay. So while they were doing the ECMO, of course, the nurse that was, a newer nurse, the original assigned nurse that was assigned there, he was like, walk me through, like, I don't mind if you take over, but walk me through what you're doing. And I said, oh, perfect. So, like, they're doing the procedure. What our role is in the procedure is essentially monitor the patient's vitals. Like, let's make sure that the patient doesn't die while they're actively putting in ECMO. Mm-hmm. And we need to, like, communicate everything that we're doing to them. Like, hey, our levo and vaso and epi and all the other drips that we were on is at XYZ. Our map is I don't know, let's say 50 or 55. Are you okay if because we were already like above the top
we
of the
don't,
limits.
we don't really put ECMO in people that are like doing great,
well, we were already above where we, the maximum of where we were supposed to be with these drugs.
Yeah.
So I would like every few minutes, I would just refresh and say like, hey, just an update. This is where we are with our drips. And, are you okay if I take XYZ drug up a little further? And they would say yes or no. And it was nice to just like educate him on like, hey, this is an emergency. Like we aren't physically coding this lady, but we are chemically coding this lady.
Right.
And it was nice for him to like see it all and for me to be able to explain the process of what all we were doing.
I think like I can't remember the last time that I've chemically coded someone not super recently, but to explain that to students and stuff, like we don't get that opportunity very often.
Because usually it's in the heat of the moment and there's so much going on, and in that case it was a little bit more of a controlled environment.
That's nice.
Yeah,
that's nice. It's a very good learning opportunity. I feel like for me, I made so many friends. Because I got to travel a little bit farther away from my home. So I made so many friends, and like, thankful for social media that I'm able to, keep up with these people that are doing great and very happy, like one of them, has just bought a new house with her husband. I'm like, so happy for you, one of them.
Some of mine from my last just got into CRNA school, and I'm like, so proud for you. Because I knew you were working so hard when I was there.
There was one from when I was in New Mexico that I met, and she's like, she's just like at a new place all the time, and she's like living this like a major adventurous. Like I feel like she needs to be a travel blogger. She takes these amazing photos out hiking out west, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so jealous. I had friends. I laugh about them. They were other travelers. From that we kind of just met together when we were in South Carolina. We all like happened to be at the same place at the same time. We bonded. So I called them brown-haired Caitlin and blonde-haired Caitlin. And I mean, I'm still friends with them, close friends, like people that I could, like brown-haired Caitlin in particular. Like if I had something going on, I could just call and be crying and be like, oh my gosh, and she's someone that, I'm very much bonded with. Blonde-haired Caitlin, I keep up with her life so much now. I mean, she has like this great boyfriend, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope y'all get married because you seem so happy, and it's just so great, and I never would have known these people without travel nursing.
Yeah. I feel like the one con almost is that sometimes you truly are in those places for such a short amount of time, and you make these friendships that it's like, oh man, like if you lived here, we would be so like just so tight all the time. If you were here all the time.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I would love to hang out with you more, and it's like, okay, 13 weeks later, I just started to get to know you, and now you're leaving me.
I think like we have podcast follow. We have like a pretty decent podcast following in New Jersey, and I think part of it's because of blonde haired Caitlin. I'm like, hey, thanks, girl. I see you out there. And I mean,
blonde-haired Caitlin is like, that's me.
Yeah. No, I hope she hears this. No, I mean, like honestly though, like it's just like great connections with people.
Definitely.
And like you just hope that your paths cross again, and just grateful for social media that you get to keep up with them and still do the joys of their life. They get to watch my son grow up through pictures and everything. And and there's a lot of people like that. I mean, I made a lot of friends everywhere that I went. I mean, one of my friends,
but even more enemies. No, I'm kidding.
It's always a possibility. No. I mean, like one of my friends not too long ago got married. Like I knew her whenever her and her now husband were like just dating, and like she was finishing up a divorce, and now to see them, they had this beautiful wedding, and their dog was in it. It was so great, and I was like, it just makes me so happy. So yeah, so definitely, I feel like travel nursing was so rewarding for me. It was a great experience. And like I think it helps me now, and I think I'll talk about this further on the next episode about leadership. But you're able to see like what works really well at some places and what doesn't, and you're able to take the good with you and leave the bad behind.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
every single place you go to is gonna have pros and cons, right? And just like go into things knowing that like it's not gonna be perfect. They're gonna have some great aspects. They're gonna have some not so great aspects, and you're gonna learn from that experience. So, what's your tip for new grads?
I would say my tip for new grads, new grads, if you're getting into nursing, and travel nursing is something you're thinking about, definitely to try to get a decently wide variety of experience, I guess, depending on what your experience level is. Whether, if you're an ICU nurse and you're going to stick to ICU nursing, just know that there's a good chance that you can get pulled left and right to any different type of ICU, and most likely you're going to be the first one to get pulled. So, just, have a really have a really good foundation of all things ICU and not just whatever your specialty is. And I'd say, when it comes to med surg or even tele units, I think that for the most part, those nurses, they get a lot of overflow of other things. They're probably going to be a little bit more familiar with like generalizations about other healthcare problems versus us, me being a CV nurse. I get so stuck in my ways about like, I know the heart and I know the lungs. And if you give me a neuro patient, like I'm going to be stressing, right? Like I don't like a neuro patient. So it's those kind of things, just make yourself a good, well-rounded, educated nurse.
Yeah, you're going to have to be a generalist.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Know that you're going to be tested in so many different ways that you did not know was possible. Probably morally, physically, emotionally. But
that just sounds like a Tuesday.
Yeah. Honestly, that's any nursing experience, but I think that it can be a little elevated in traveling because, oftentimes, like we've said, you're going to make friends along the way, but in some places you really might not. And just to know that your social support system, it may not be as strong at every facility you go to, and that, you have to,
and that's okay,
be open to that. Yeah.
You can do anything for 13 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe not anything, but most things.
Most things, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining me again. I feel like we're gonna make this a regular thing. Like
you and I chit-chatting?
Yeah, no, I think, I do want to have you back on because I want to talk about the CRNA school piece. You've been through a journey with enrollment, just the admissions process and everything. I think there are a lot of people who could identify with that. So I think soon we'll have to talk about that and dig a little bit deeper. So
maybe I can get a couple friends on.
Oh yeah, it would be great, for sure. So just don't go in blind. Travel nursing can be an amazing experience, but just don't go in without doing your research first. So next week we are gonna have a new guest that you've never met before. Her name is Decision. And we're going to be talking about, like, the path to leadership and probably even, like, some less, like, some non-traditional roles as far as nursing goes, like, away from the bedside. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that. Swing by the merch store. It wasn't that long ago that I redid everything. I have extended our 10% off on your first order. The code is BrewCrew10. And so everybody from now on your first order, 10% off. And we've got tumblers, we've got shirts, I've got a hoodie. I may have a really cool model here soon that I'm going to post on social media wearing one of the hoodies. We'll see. Oh. And codebrewpodcast.myshopify.com. Reach out to us on social media. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have a TikTok that I'm still trying to figure out, so please bear with me. I am getting older and I don't know as much about TikTok. So, and then, and also like, anything you might need, give us a shout on codebrewpodcast@gmail.com is our email address. So, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on and dealing with me. Without Luke and
it's a blessing to not have Luke.
No, we love him. No, he's I'm glad he's getting a break away, even from the United States. He's getting a whole break. So anyway, stay caffeinated, stay curious, y'all, and we'll see you next time on Code Brew.